"I don't need your money," the old veteran said, resting both weathered hands on the fence we had just finished repairing. His eyes glistened with something deeper than gratitude. "But there's someone I want you to meet." Before I could answer, a young woman stepped through the gate holding a faded photograph. The moment our eyes met, I had the strange feeling that my life had just split into two parts, the man I had been until today, and the man I was about to become. Most people think life-changing moments arrive with fireworks, dramatic speeches, or impossible luck. Mine began with a crooked wooden fence, a rusty toolbox, and an elderly neighbor everyone else on the street had quietly forgotten. Sometimes the greatest blessings wear dusty boots and carry invisible scars. This is the story of how a simple act of kindness uncovered a family secret, healed old wounds, and taught me that some people spend years waiting for someone willing to knock on their door instead of walking past it. Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional and inspiring stories like this, make sure to support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories of kindness, hope, and humanity. I had lived in Maple Grove for only 6 months after accepting a remote engineering job. It was a quiet neighborhood where everyone waved politely but rarely stopped to talk. Most afternoons I watched people pull into their garages, disappear inside, and close the world behind them. Across the street lived Walter Harrison, an elderly military veteran who always wore the same faded green cap. His white picket fence leaned farther every week, almost as if it was exhausted from standing. Neighbors whispered about him without ever speaking to him. "He likes being left alone. His family never visits. He's probably too stubborn to accept help." Funny how people become experts on someone they've never bothered to know. One Saturday morning I was loading groceries from my truck when a loud crack echoed across the street. I looked up just in time to see part of Walter's fence collapse onto the flower bed. He stared at the broken boards for several seconds before slowly bending down to lift one piece. His back trembled under the effort. Without thinking, I walked over. "Need an extra pair of hands?" He looked surprised, almost suspicious. "You know how to use a hammer?" I've survived enough DIY disasters to fake confidence. For the first time, the old man's serious face cracked into a smile. "That's good enough for me." His garage looked like a museum frozen in time. Old military medals hung beside gardening tools. Black and white photographs covered one wall. A folded American flag rested inside a glass case above an ancient workbench. As we carried lumber into the yard, Walter moved carefully, refusing to let me do everything. "I may be old," he muttered, "but I'm not furniture." I laughed. "I wouldn't dare treat you like it." Hour after hour we replaced broken posts, straightened rails, and secured fresh boards into place. Sweat soaked through my shirt, but Walter never complained. He worked slowly, measuring everything twice before driving each nail with practiced precision. "You learned construction in the service?" I asked. He nodded. "Combat engineers. We built bridges while people tried to blow them apart." The words were calm, but the silence afterward carried memories far heavier than lumber. Around lunchtime I noticed him rubbing his shoulder. "You okay?" "Old injury. Want to take a break?" He hesitated before agreeing. Inside his kitchen, everything was spotless. A single coffee mug sat beside yesterday's newspaper. The refrigerator held only a few simple groceries. "No family nearby?" I asked gently. Walter stirred his coffee longer than necessary. "Life doesn't always go according to plan." He changed the subject immediately. "So, what brought a young man like you here?" I explained the breakup that had pushed me toward a fresh start. For years in a relationship had ended with one quiet conversation and a packed suitcase. I figured a new town might help. Walter nodded with surprising understanding. "Running away never fixes pain." "I'm not running." "No," he said softly. "You're trying to outrun memories." "Different thing." His words landed harder than I expected. By sunset the fence stood straighter than it probably had in 20 years. Walter stepped back proudly. "Looks like it'll survive a hurricane. Or another stubborn veteran." He laughed so loudly that birds scattered from a nearby tree. Then his expression changed. "I don't have much money." "I wasn't expecting any." "I know." He looked toward his front porch. But there's someone I want you to meet. Before I could respond, the front door opened. A young woman stepped outside carrying a cardboard box against her chest. She looked to be around my age, dressed simply in jeans and a light blue sweater. Her smile was warm but uncertain. "This," Walter said quietly, "is my daughter, Emily." She walked toward us. "So you're the neighbor Dad keeps talking about?" I blinked. "He talks about me every dinner." Walter looked embarrassed. "I may have mentioned you once or twice." Emily rolled her eyes playfully. Translation. Every phone call begins with, "That young fellow across the street seems like decent people." We all laughed. Walter motioned toward the box she carried. "Go ahead." Emily carefully opened it. Inside were dozens of old photographs, military patches, handwritten letters, and newspaper clippings. "My father doesn't show these to many people," she said. Walter picked up one faded photograph of himself standing beside 3 soldiers. I was 22. His thumb rested on one face. Only 2 of us came home. Silence settled between us. "You carry that every day?" I asked. He nodded. "You don't stop remembering. You just learn to keep walking." Emily gently squeezed his shoulder. "I've been trying to convince him to donate these to the Veterans Museum." Walter smiled sadly. "Not yet." As we looked through the photographs, Emily pulled out one envelope that had yellowed with age. "I found this while cleaning the attic." Walter's expression instantly changed. His hands trembled before he even touched it. "I thought this was gone." "What is it?" I asked. He stared at the handwriting for several long seconds. "A letter I wrote to my wife before deploying overseas." Emily looked surprised. "You never showed me this." "I couldn't." His voice cracked. "I was afraid reading it would bring everything back." He slowly unfolded the fragile paper. The ink had faded, but the words remained. "If I don't make it home, promise me you'll tell our little girl every day that her father loved her more than anything this world could ever give him." Emily covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. Walter looked away, unable to continue. Without thinking, she wrapped both arms around him. "I always knew," she whispered. "No," Walter replied. "You deserve to hear it in my own voice." For nearly a minute neither of them spoke. I quietly stepped back, feeling like an accidental witness to something sacred. Then Emily looked at me. "You know why I'm really thankful you came today?" I shook my head. "Because Dad hasn't smiled like this since Mom passed away 3 years ago." Walter wiped his eyes and cleared his throat. "She's exaggerating." "I'm absolutely not." She turned toward me again. "For months I've begged him to let neighbors help. He always refused." Walter sighed. "Pride is a heavy backpack. And today?" He looked at the repaired fence glowing in the evening sunlight. "Today someone reminded me that accepting kindness doesn't make you weak." At that moment, I realized fixing the fence had never been the real job. The broken boards were only an excuse. The real repair had happened somewhere much deeper, in a heart that had spent years believing it had to carry every burden alone. And as Walter folded the old letter with trembling hands, I couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected friendship was only the beginning of a story none of us could yet imagine.